This is CBC Winnipeg News.
We didn't start this fight, but we are not backing down. We are building up our province. We're Trump-proofing our economy and our country.
A budget to take on Trump, tariffs, and a trade war. The NDP says it's fighting back and protecting Manitoba. Good evening. Thanks for joining us. It's a budget built with a mix of optimism and caution and filled with contingencies. The NDP has tabled its second budget, saying Manitoba is ready to fight back when it comes to the ongoing trade war. But uncertainty clouds the province's economic future. So let's break the numbers down. On the optimistic side, spending is up $1.7 billion, a 7% increase over last year. And the deficit is projected to be $794 million, which is almost the same as last year's budget projection. But if U.S. and Chinese tariffs continue, that deficit is expected to more than double to $1.9 billion. And the province plans to spend as much as $485 million on supports for tariff-affected workers and businesses. We go live to the legislature now, where CBC's Bartley Kivas is standing by. Bartley, what's the main takeaway from today?
Well, there are two very different themes on this budget. The province plans to spend and receive a lot more money. At the same time, it's bracing for the biggest financial crisis since the first year of the COVID-19 pandemic. Now, Finance Minister Adrian Saleh is expecting income tax revenue alone to grow $400 million in the coming fiscal year. And despite a period of intense economic uncertainty in advance of another round of Donald Trump's tariffs.
Right now, we're working with the information we have about our current state of our economy. And again, our economy right now, we're coming in here in this situation from a place of strength. And we don't know what we don't know. We don't know what's going to happen on April 2nd. But the message we want to send to Manitobans, we're ready for what comes.
Saleh is expecting more provincial sales tax revenue as well, and more money from the federal government, even though the two men most likely to be Prime Minister in a matter of weeks, Mark Carney and Pierre Poilievre, are both fiscal conservatives. University of Winnipeg economist Phil Soren says it looks like the budget was written before the U.S. and Chinese tariffs materialized.
I would agree that those revenue projections are relatively optimistic based on those growth projections, but also it is almost admirable to see the courage that this government is putting in terms of spending. You know, healthcare is their priority, and they're willing to go down with the ship in some sense.
Healthcare spending is up over $1 billion in this budget.
So, Bartley, what kind of reaction are you hearing so far about this budget?
Well, the province has committed more millions for the North End Water Pollution Control Centre's upgrades, and Winnipeg Mayor Scott Gillingham is very happy with that. There's also $10 million set aside for security system rebates for small and medium-sized businesses. Now, groups representing small business and restaurants are thrilled with that. The official opposition, though, has questions about the $500 million set aside for workers and businesses affected by tariffs.
I would like to see what it's actually going towards and get some details on that. I want to ensure that that doesn't become a slush fund for the NDP, and that those dollars actually go to helping agriculture producers, Manitoba families, and Manitoba businesses that are being faced with the U.S. and Chinese tariffs right now.
The Premier and the interim opposition leader did not speak to reporters today. Brittany.
All right, thank you. That's CBC's Bartley Kivas tonight. Now, the threat of tariffs loomed over today's budget speech, so much that it contains a contingency tariff budget. It projects a $600 million revenue shortfall if the U.S. goes ahead with its tariff threats, and hundreds of millions of additional spending to support people and businesses affected. The CBC's Alana Cole has those details.
It's weighing on businesses. Tariffs. The threat of more, all causing uncertainty for Manitobans.
Donald Trump has threatened our sovereignty and our economy.
Today, a look at the response from Manitoba's government in the 2025 budget if President Donald Trump goes ahead and imposes a 25% tariff on all Canadian imports. There's up to $485 million in supports for impacted workers and businesses. That includes up to $100 million in loans for Manitoba businesses, the same amount to support producers and farmers. Up to another $100 million aimed at helping businesses pivot to new markets, and $100 million more to support families.
We can't predict the future, and with Trump especially, there is so much uncertainty. But we will not sit on our hands, and we will not stand by while working people lose their jobs and families suffer.
Terry Shaw with the Canadian Manufacturers and Exporters says he's glad to see Manitoba stepping up to help, but industries are already feeling the impact of tariffs. He wants to see more detail.
The reality is, when are they going to be triggered? What is industry going to have to do to access them? So while it's positive it's in there, we still do need more detail at the individual business level.
Other measures fighting back against tariffs announced by Sala today include getting rid of the electric vehicle rebate for Teslas and EVs from China, and ending a multi-million-dollar contract with a Texas firm to sell provincial park passes online. Getting into parks will be free for a year. Alana Cole, CBC News, Winnipeg.
Time now to head back down to the legislature, where our Bartley Kivas is standing by with the finance minister. Bartley.
Finance Minister Adrian Sala, can you tell us more about these supports for the tariff-affected workers and businesses? What could we expect?
Well, we know that the Trump tariff threat is creating a real risk for our province and for our country. This budget rises to the moment with $3.7 billion in capital investments to get Manitobans to work. We've created a main budget that includes those investments in capital, but we've also created a tariff contingency budget. That tariff contingency budget contains $100 million in supports for directly affected businesses, $100 million for ag producers, and other supports to make sure that in the event we see 25% tariffs applied to Manitoba, we'll be ready for what comes.
There was some criticism during the pandemic of the money going out the door quickly and perhaps not necessarily where it needed to. What are you doing to ensure that this doesn't become another repeat of some of the criticism that was directed, to be fair, more to the federal government, but to some extent the provincial government during the pandemic?
Well, we've created a main budget that, again, is focused on putting Manitobans to work, and this tariff contingency budget will be triggered if we do have a scenario where those 25% tariffs are brought for the rest of the year. In the event that we do end up needing to trigger that tariff budget, what we're going to ensure is that those investments focus on protecting jobs.
Now, this business with no longer having an EV rebate for the Chinese EVs, while the U.S. reactions can be unpredictable, the Chinese tend to be decisive. Is there any risk in doing more harm than good with this?
Look, we know Manitobans right now want to show hometown pride in their decisions and their purchases, and they want to see our government do the same. And I think our changes to that EV rebate program reflect that and shows that our government has elbows up working to protect Manitobans.
Given the fact that we have this uncertain period economically, what should the public make of these relatively optimistic projections in terms of income tax revenue and provincial sales tax revenue?
Well, we put together a budget that has firm revenue projections that are, reflect the work of the good folks in the Department of Finance and our best efforts at understanding what the revenues for next year will look like. We have confidence in their work, and I think that reflects, overall a good, solid budget that will ultimately deliver on our path to balance that we committed in the election.
Thank you very much. We're going to have to leave it there. Thanks for coming here.
Thank
Finance Minister Adrian Sala.
Thank you so much.
Back to you, Brittany.
All right. Thank you, Bartley. Time now to check in with Riley Lachak. Riley, new budget, new season today. It is ushering in spring.
Yes, and if you stepped outside today, you're probably thinking to yourself, it's a little more like it with some of these temperatures, particularly in the southern part of the province. Winnipeg, we beat expectations, up to 7 degrees this afternoon. A very nice one out there, especially if you managed to get outside or had the day off today. Boy, you picked a good one for that. 8 in Winkler, 2s and 3s back to the west, and you can start to see where that colder air is starting to funnel into parts of northern Manitoba. Lynn Lake at -13 today, Thompson also at -13, so that colder air is coming. Bit of stratus cloud still hanging around south and central parts of the province. As expected, a little bit of a flurry activity out of some of this and even into into extreme parts of southern Manitoba. A few showers being picked up on radar in Emerson towards Steinbach as well. So I do have a slight chance of flurries in our forecast for Winnipeg tonight, but what you will notice through the overnight hours is the winds picking up, north 30 gusting to 50. -7 the overnight temperature. By the morning, we'll start to lose a little bit more here. -12 first thing in the morning, north winds 30 gusting to 50. So maybe a tad miserable with that north wind tomorrow, and back to a mix of sun and clouds by the afternoon. Northwesterly winds 20 gusting to 40. I'll have more on when temperatures like these start to ease up a little bit when I come back in a bit.
Riley, you said spring today.
Give it a few days.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Well, it terminated its transit system. Now people living in the province's biggest city in the north are feeling the impacts. More on that straight ahead. You're watching CBC Winnipeg. For many in Manitoba's north, air travel isn't a luxury. It's a vital lifeline in and out of communities. Today, an expanded terminal here in Winnipeg is boasting the ability to improve the connectivity and help make a difference for those living in remote First Nations. As CBC's Zubina Ahmed reports, the improvement is welcome and brings hope for more changes.
new hope for Perimeter Airlines. The regional airline services remote First Nations in Manitoba and Ontario. On Thursday, it announced a 21,000 square foot expansion, 2 new gates, and an upgraded baggage system. Assembly of Manitoba Chiefs Grand Chief Cara Wilson calls it an exciting investment.
It is a necessity for northern remote First Nations. You know, it is essential for healthcare, food security, and as well as economic opportunities.
The new design features custom artwork by Indigenous artists, a comfortable waiting space, and a new restaurant. Joey Petrusser is the president and CEO of Perimeter Aviation. He says the expansion will also improve security and safety.
Perimeter Aviation screens passengers, baggage, and freight to prevent illicit substances from reaching the communities. This is especially important since a lot of our communities are grappling with drug epidemics that threatens the safety of the residents.
These upgrades came from feedback from First Nation leaders. Not all in the northern communities have been happy with the airline services. Raymond Flett is the chief of St. Teresa Point, a Nisini New Nation.
Quite expensive. Plane tickets are quite expensive. Things like over $500 one way from my nation to Winnipeg.
Chief Walter Harper of Wasagamack First Nation says the recent new baggage fee is causing grief. So are flight cancellations without notice and the cost of groceries that have flown in.
People that are traveling, sometimes they lose their baggages, and that's where we get frustrated.
Manitoba, Kiwatanowi, Okimakanak. Grand Chief Garrison said he agrees there's room for improvement. But
there's much to celebrate, and I'm only happy because our people use this facility, our people will be using the services here, and their journey will be a little more pleasant than it was in the past.
The new space was funded in part with $9.5 million from the federal government. Zabina Ahmed, CBC News, Winnipeg.
A Brandon police officer has been charged with assault after the province's police watchdog looked into an incident from 2 years ago. It stems from an arrest back in August 2023. At the time, police were called about a woman causing a disturbance. She was arrested and returned to her home. The woman then filed a complaint with the Independent Investigation Unit, saying she suffered a broken collarbone during the arrest. Yesterday, a summons was issued for Constable Brett Long. He's been charged with assault causing bodily harm. No car, no bus, and few options. Residents in Thompson say they're struggling to get around the city. Transit service was cancelled last summer, meaning many are relying on the goodwill of others for a ride or paying for costly cabs to get where they need to go. CBC's Sanuda Ranawake has more.
Michelle Bruneau wishes she could get outside more and socialize. She's visually impaired and can't drive. Without a city bus in Thompson since last summer, Bruneau's only options are to get her husband to drive her places or take a taxi.
To spend $25 just to go for coffee at the mall just seems not feasible, especially in these harder economic times.
Bruneau uses a cane to get around, but longer distances can be treacherous. She used to take the bus almost daily when it was running.
I know Thompson, everyone says you're 5 minutes from wherever you need to go, but 5 minutes when you can't see is a long time.
Thompson's Mayor Colleen Smook says the buses they did have were not fit for the harsh weather and frigid temperatures in Thompson. They constantly broke down and eventually were put out of commission. While support for the bus may be high, she says few people actually used it.
The trouble is, for the few people that say they support it, we don't even get that many people riding the bus. So if everybody that said we needed a transit system would ride the bus, we could likely get a bus.
Smook says the city isn't obligated to provide a transit system and doesn't have the funding for it to start back up. She says students and seniors were the biggest users of transit. Penny Byer is helping connect seniors with a ride. She's the coordinator for the Thompson Seniors Community Resource Council.
In an average week, I'd say we'd get maybe 2 or 3. And of those 2 or 3, we can probably help people half the time.
Bruneau runs a small craft business from home. But she worries. Without bus service, she won't get a job that can pay the bills. She says her vision won't improve.
So I know I'll never be able to drive and I'll have to be reliant on something. There are a lot of people that need a bus. I know that the bus always doesn't pay for itself, but it's a necessity.
And one she says she can't live without. Sanuda Ranawake, CBC News, Thompson.
Well, it might be the first day of spring.
Yes.
But buckle up. We're getting back on that roller coaster, Riley.
Back to winter we go.
It's a short-lived spring for now.
Yeah, for now. Give it a few days, and then we'll get back into the swing of things here. But yes, we do have to endure some below-seasonal conditions for the next couple of days. Maybe some snow in there, too. So.
Okay.
It was going to happen. Here's a look at your upper level winds. This is where we'll start because there is a few things to see tonight. Notably, this area of low pressure that's just kind of gotten stuck over Hudson Bay. This is what's responsible for bringing some of this cold Arctic air into the northern prairies. You can see some of these pink colors. Those are temperatures in the upper atmosphere, at least closer to that -30 mark. That cold air extends into Saskatchewan, and as we get into the overnight hours, it will start to push this jet stream a little bit further south, creating a bit of a ridge in the jet stream, and that's going to allow some of that very cold air in as we get over the next couple of days here. That cold air also coming from this area of high pressure, which as it moves south into the prairie provinces, you can really see how it just clears everything out and gets everything out of the way. So a little bit of cloud cover into the overnight early morning hours, maybe a couple of stray flurries into some of this, but by the time we even get into the morning hours, we're back to a mainly sunny sky really across the province tomorrow. I mean, maybe a bit of thin high-level cloud hanging around, so more of a sun-cloud mix as we get through the afternoon hours, but certainly a much brighter day once again tomorrow really across the province. But what you'll notice is a biting cold wind throughout the day tomorrow. It does start to die off as we get into Saturday. As that high pressure moves out of the way, we start to introduce a little bit of cloud cover once again into the day on Saturday. This is a weak disturbance that is pushing through from Alberta, bringing the Parkland, maybe even as far south as Brandon, a couple of flurries into Saturday. But what I am watching is another system moving in from Montana. This one likely to bring a little bit of snow at least to Westman. Anywhere really south of the Trans-Canada Highway Saturday into Sunday has a fairly good chance of seeing at least a dusting of snow as we head through the weekend here. So do keep that in mind over the next couple of days here. Could be a few rounds of snow coming our way. Up to supper time Saturday, really traced to a couple of centimeters through Westman. I mean, into the Riding Mountain region, maybe you pick up 5 to 10 centimeters of snow. Some pockets of locally heavier amounts, but certainly I think by the time we get to Saturday evening, we are looking at least a dusting here in the Red River Valley. Those biting cold winds do pick up as we get into Friday as well, gusting up to 40, even 50 at times throughout the day. But you'll see as we get later on into Friday, they really start to die off as that cold weather sets in. So waking up to -12 tomorrow in Winnipeg, up to -26 even into parts of northern Manitoba. Cold day tomorrow, Brittany, and then we're back above zero by the weekend.
Okay, thank you, Riley.
Welcome.
Well, we have more to come after this. And of course, you can find more coverage of today's budget on our website, cbc.ca/Manitoba. Stay with us. CBC News has learned that Canadians will be heading to the polls in a matter of weeks. On Sunday, Prime Minister Mark Carney will ask the Governor-General to dissolve Parliament. That means an election may be held as soon as April 28th. Ashley Burke has more.
The Prime Minister hit the ice with the Edmonton Oilers as he gets ready to hit the campaign trail. Sources say Mark Carney's game plan is to ask the Governor-General on Sunday to trigger an election.
I haven't been Prime Minister for a week yet, and you can see what we've done thus far. We can do even more with that strong and clear mandate to move forward for the country, for all Canadians.
After a year trailing far behind the Conservatives in the polls, the Liberal Party appears to have turned its political fortunes around. After Justin Trudeau resigned, Donald Trump threatened Canada, and Mark Carney took over as Prime Minister.
It's one of the most unprecedented shifts in public opinion we've seen in modern history.
If Canadians voted today, Eric Grenier says polling suggests the Liberals could win a tight race.
Maybe potentially getting a majority government that even Justin Trudeau couldn't get in the last two elections.
After losing some ground in the polls, Conservative leader Pierre Poilievre in Quebec announcing pre-approved areas for industrial construction projects and defending his campaign's decision to bar journalists from traveling on his party's bus and plane during the campaign.
We will have open media across the country. Local media will have the ability to ask questions. It will be refreshing to hear from local outlets on what they have to say about their local priorities.
The decision means it could be harder for political journalists to attend press conferences in remote areas and hold Poilievre to account.
He gets defensive, he gets offended, he can't handle questions.
The NDP's leader is fighting for his political life. His party's being squeezed out of the race. Polling suggests his party's at risk of losing official party status, and he's at risk of losing his own seat.
News for everybody, we're not going anywhere. We're always going to fight for working people. We're not going anywhere.
The polls lately have shown just how dramatically and quickly public opinion can change and could continue to change during the election campaign, which we're expecting to be short. Sources say that Canadians could head to the polls on April 28th or May 5th. Ashley Burke, CBC News, Ottawa.
So as you just heard, Conservative leader Pierre Poilievre's campaign team will not allow media to travel with him. It's an unprecedented move, but what are the bigger implications? JP Tasker explains.
In an unprecedented move, the Conservative Party is blocking political reporters from traveling with Pierre Poilievre in the upcoming federal election campaign. This means reporters won't be able to travel on the campaign plane or bus with Pierre Poilievre once that election campaign gets underway. This matters because it won't be as easy to go to Pierre Poilievre's events, especially those that are in more remote locations, more rural, northern places where it's difficult to get to, and it won't be as easy to ask him questions and hold him to account. It's also difficult for political reporters to meet everyday people and voters and tell their stories to a larger audience. The Conservative campaign manager says journalists can still attend the events and they can ask questions remotely. There'll be a conferencing service set up for people to dial in and ask their questions. They don't actually have to be on the ground to interact with Pierre Poilievre. The NDP, the Bloc, and the Liberals have all said reporters can follow them across the country. They're free to come on their campaign planes or buses. The Greens don't have a bus or plane this time. As with all the past election campaigns, reporters will not be getting a free ride. They will have to pay their fare to follow the leaders across the country.
CBC News will have special coverage Sunday whenever that election call comes. Join Chief Political Correspondent Rosemary Barton and David Cochran, host of Power and Politics, on CBC Television, CBC News Network, and anywhere you get CBC News online. A preliminary report on last month's dramatic crash at Toronto's Pearson Airport has been completed. The passenger jet had skidded on landing and flipped over on the runway, but many questions still remain. Thomas Dagg reports on what's been determined so far.
In the final seconds of Delta Flight 4819, new data shows the plane hurtled toward the ground at more than 1,100 feet per minute, setting off an internal warning alarm, then this. The fiery crash igniting a cloud of jet fuel and sending the plane skidding upside down on the snowy Pearson Airport runway.
Everybody's been cooperating greatly.
Ken Webster is the Transportation Safety Board's lead investigator.
From 150 feet down,
the rate of descent increased, and there was an alert or a warning from the warning system on the aircraft of a sink rate, indicating the high descent rate.
These new pictures released by the TSB show carry-on luggage that flew to the ceiling and the small roof hatch that the two pilots had to crawl through to escape.
Which the report doesn't really go into detail is the conversation that took place in the cockpit between the pilot flying and the pilot assisting. There should be a constant chatter.
The TSB's initial report confirms it was the first officer flying that Bombardier jet. She had been hired 13 months prior. The more experienced captain also sitting in the cockpit.
I think it was the negligence of the first officer who was flying the aircraft that caused the accident.
Investigators aren't laying blame and haven't yet determined a cause, though questions remain about that first officer's botched landing.
I remember telling my wife that we seem to be going fast.
Delta Airlines says it won't comment while the incident is still under investigation. The company is facing at least 9 separate lawsuits from passengers who all say they were badly hurt in the crash. Thomas Daigle, CBC News, Richmond Hill, Ontario.
Police in Hamilton, Ontario are investigating after dozens of vehicles were vandalized at a Tesla dealership in the city. About 80 electric vehicles were damaged with scratches and punctured tires. It happened last night at an outdoor lot. Vandals have targeted Tesla cars and dealerships across Canada and the U.S. since President Donald Trump appointed Tesla CEO Elon Musk to oversee U.S. government cost-cutting measures. Now, with the trade war with the U.S. underway, companies in this country are promoting their Canadian roots, among them Tim Hortons. But as Mike Crawley shows us, its new marketing campaign is triggering a debate about just how Canadian the company really is.
Over its 60-year history, Tim Hortons has often marketed its Canadianness.
Citizenship, Canadian. Proof. Roll up the rim to win.
Now these social media posts are triggering a debate. Just how Canadian is Tim Hortons?
Oh, that's a great question.
The company was co-founded by hockey player Tim Horton and businessman Ron Joyce with one outlet in Hamilton in 1964. U.S. hamburger chain Wendy's bought the company in 1995 and maintained ownership for more than a decade. Then in 2014, Tim's was taken over by Restaurant Brands International. At that time, a Brazilian firm controlled nearly half of the company's shares. Now, the ownership is more spread out, including among U.S. and Canadian investors.
Is Tim Hortons really Canadian?
It's not owned by a Canadian company anymore,
it was
right?
Founded by a Leafs player, Tim Horton, though.
Yeah. Sure.
It's a Canadian company.
I think it's a Canadian company.
It's
like known for being Canadian.
The more than 4,000 Tim Hortons locations across the country are controlled by Canadian franchise owners like Tanya Doucette.
I'm Canadian. My family, we're part of this business. We've been almost 20 years as restaurant owners, my husband and I.
Tim Hortons is totally Canadian. I think it's our claim to fame. I don't know, it's very Canadian core to me.
They're very strategic in how they're marketing this.
Natasha Kaufman runs a public relations agency.
They're saying that it's a brand that's loved by Canadians, which is absolutely true. We've been part of Canada's history for 60 years, also true. But what's misleading is that they're not owned by a Canadian company anymore.
A Tim Hortons spokesperson says its corporate headquarters and main coffee roastery are located in Canada.
I'm not Canadian myself, so for me it's quintessentially Canadian.
All food for thought in a debate happening across the country, often over coffee. Mike Crawley, CBC News, Toronto.
March is Fraud Prevention Month, but what if technology is helping instead of preventing fraud? As the CBC Marketplace team recently found out, artificial intelligence has the potential to make scammers sound more trustworthy, all in an effort to dupe our family and friends. David Common has that story.
Detecting scams is about to get a whole lot harder as scammers embrace artificial intelligence.
Oh, it's a playground.
At the world's largest fraud training and prevention conference, the alarm bells are sounding. Overseas scammers are harvesting our posts and videos from social media to use against our family and friends. Former CIA officer Peter Warmcutt did it in under a minute, using me as an example. Hi, this is David Common reporting from Las Vegas, Nevada at the 35th Annual ACFE Global Fraud Conference. That's nuts. By fraudsters. I spoke none of those words, but AI can clone my voice precisely from social media. It may have happened to Marilyn Crawford, an early morning phone call from a man identifying himself as the local police. Her son Kevin recounts what the caller said next.
We have your grandson in custody. He has been involved with a car theft, and we need $9,000 to release him.
It's called the grandparent scam.
They said, here, we have Ian here, and he goes, "Hi, Grandma. Police say they need some money to release me, or they're going to keep me in jail."
In that moment, did you believe it was your grandson in trouble?
I did. I really did.
The scammers even sent her a taxi to take her to the bank. But an alert teller there stopped Marilyn from losing any money. Just as scammers use AI for voice cloning,
Hello, scammers. I'm your worst nightmare.
a British telecom is using AI to fight back.
I'm an AI created by O2 to waste phone scammers' time.
Daisy is not real, but she convincingly keeps scammers on the line.
Because while they're busy talking to me, they can't be scamming you.
All of it underscoring how much more sophisticated scams and scam busting have now become. David Common, CBC News, Toronto.
Still ahead, happiness shouldn't be so underrated. So what brings a smile to your face? We find out next. You're watching CBC Winnipeg News. It's not just the first day of spring, it's also International Day of Happiness. So what makes you happy? Well, a team of filmmaking students in the CREATE program at Sisler High set out to the downtown campus of Red River College to find out exactly that.
Hello, my name is Sean Monfero, and today at RSC, we are going to be figuring out the answer to the day-old question, what makes you happy?
Well, writing makes me happy. I love to write poetry.
Seeing my improvement and my friends' improvements made me pretty happy.
Mandala art. I made a broken clock, a skeleton.
Hello, we are in the library, so I'll try to be as quiet as possible. But today, we are going to be answering the day-old question, what makes you happy? And I gotta ask you.
Recently, I went to a restaurant with friends and I had an amazing experience. The food was wonderful.
Going to Toronto with my classmates back in June was pretty fun.
Happiness, it's an interesting notion we take for granted, but happiness is one of the 4 emotions that are part of being a human being.
My last memory of something that made me happy was getting an A on my math test that I was expecting to fail, so that definitely stuck with me.
I'm Joseph Huntington. I'm here with Sean Monfero. And Sean, what makes you happy? First thing that comes to mind is probably just my friends for sure, and definitely my girlfriend. Here, she's gonna love this, but this is her sleeping. All right, perfect. Here you go. Yeah, I hope when she sees this, she's not gonna get mad at me. So. Yeah, I won't be happy after that. Would you be able to answer one question about happiness?
Is it that question?
Yes, it is.
I guess I could.
Okay. Okay. All right. So, what makes you happy?
Gingerbread molasses cookies.
Incredible. What about them makes you so happy?
Well, the taste, obviously.
I love that. Love that. Do you make them yourself?
No, I wish I could make them myself. That would be a lifelong dream.
Maybe the gingerbread cookie has meaning to him. Maybe it brings memories of when he used to eat gingerbread cookies with his grandma and he felt really connected and cared for and valued.
Excuse me. Hi. For a small little question, this is for a CBC documentary. Would you like to answer just one small question?
My graduation trip last July. Went to Vancouver. Had a good time. It felt really amazing, to be honest, because I didn't think I would do it.
Well, I worked really hard and I felt like this was me doing my best, and I pushed through all these barriers, and I felt, and I say potent and powerful, they go, yeah, I felt really potent and powerful. And as soon as I said the words, you could see that their happiness got bigger. And that was there, it was sort of proving the fact that as you express your feelings, the emotions get bigger.
One question. What makes you happy? Anything that come to mind?
Not participating in conversations like this.
Oh, perfect. Love that.
Protecting nature.
There you go. All right, I'd be happy too.
When I come here and I see plants growing, it's like this is the kind of world I want to live in, where things are thriving and, they're happy.
Here we are at the friendship bench, and just like friendships, happiness is what makes us human and connects us. Yet it's unique to each person. So I have to ask, what makes you happy?
So, Riley, what makes you happy?
Nice weather.
Well, you're going to have to wait for that.
Well, it'll be sunny.
And pets. Sunshine. We both said pets. I love dogs.
Okay.
That makes me happy. So the dog walking forecast might make some people happy as well, because it means you can get outside, spend some quality time with your furry loved one.
We're cheating a little bit tonight. Have a look. So there's a dog. There's a dog there. It's not a living animal, but it's there. The cat is Mabel, though. So thanks, Allison, for sending this picture. And you can send yours to talkback@cbc.ca. Yeah, you'll probably want to maybe stay inside tomorrow morning. We're looking at -12 first thing. A biting north wind tomorrow, 30 gusting to 50 in the morning. We'll start to see that backing off a bit as we get through the afternoon hours. So -7 if you're keeping track, a full 14 degrees colder than it was today in Winnipeg. So there's that. Down to -10 by the evening hours, but it will be a brighter one tomorrow. So again, some high-level clouds hanging around, but certainly we'll get some sunshine as we get through the day for your Friday. Temperatures now still at 6 degrees in Winnipeg, closer to freezing in the Parkland, -2 in Swan River. You can kind of see where that ridge starts to cut through parts of central Manitoba, -15 in Thompson, and still at 9 degrees right now in Sprague. Want to show you the picture east of us once again this evening, because we saw that system rolling through that first area of low pressure that I was talking about last night, bringing some tornado watches and some thunderstorm warnings into the States. That's now up over northern Quebec, but another round making its way through southern Ontario, some flurries into the southwestern part of Ontario, even the GTA, some rain, snow mixing throughout the day today. So a little bit of active weather to the east. We do have a bit of snow in our forecast here for southern Manitoba. So your overnight forecast looks like this. Chance we could see maybe a few flurries in Brandon overnight, -14, -12 for much of the Red River Valley, -15 into Pinawa and into northwestern Ontario, and Swan River down to -23 overnight. Northern parts of the province close to -30 for parts of northern Manitoba. Tuduli Lake overnight -27, -25 in Norway House, -23s and 24s back to the west. Through the day tomorrow, bright sunshine throughout the day. We're looking at really nothing but sunshine through much of northern Manitoba. A few passing clouds as we get through the day. By the late afternoon, looking at temperatures around -11 in Thompson, -10s through Flin Flon and the Paw. Into southern Manitoba, some cloud departing as we get through the morning. So first thing, we're looking at a mostly sunny sky thing on the tail end of some cloud cover in Winnipeg, but mainly sunny by the time we get to the afternoon hours, and temperatures markedly colder by the afternoon. -7 in Melita, -12 in Dauphin, and temperatures, Brittany, hanging around -10 into northwestern Ontario.
Thank you, Riley.
Welcome.
It started as a hobby, making natural and organic makeup for herself and eventually hitting and selling at markets. Now, this Morton-based makeup manufacturer is sharing her story. It's handcrafted right here in the prairies, and CBC's Corey Funk got a look inside.
So there's a lot of manufacturing that happens in the Morden Winkler area. And when you think about manufacturing, you might think about something like heavy machinery, tractor parts, lots of things involving metal. But I'm here just outside of Morden, kind of between Morden and Miami, in the escarpment. And there's a facility here that manufactures makeup. It's called Piranata. It started in Morden 20 years ago, but it's grown so much that they've actually had to move outside of Morden to this facility here. And here they're actually making a concealer as we speak. If you kind of look in here, she's pouring molds for the concealer, and it's going to harden and go into tubes. And then it's actually going to go off to market. She's actually mixed it in this pot. That's how the concealer is made. But we're going to get some more details now from the owner and founder, formulator of Piranata, Candice Grenier. Hi, Candice.
Hi there.
So before, we're actually standing in front of a wall here.
Yes.
Tell me what all this is here and how it becomes makeup.
Right. So this is a section of our finished pigment blends. So we buy the individual mineral pigments and natural pigments in big barrels in bulk, and we blend them together in our blending room into specific colors that we'll use for lipstick, for cheek color, for foundations. So these are our special proprietary blends.
Tell me a little bit about how Piranata's grown. How did it start?
It started as a hobby craft actually in my home, just making products for myself and bringing them to markets and such. And it slowly grew from there, like more retailers inquired, hey, can I carry your products? And there was a demand over the years for more natural, organic products as compared to the traditional synthetic, conventional brands. So I think that's really boosted our brand over the years. And so, yeah.
And when you tell people that you own a makeup manufacturing company, a cosmetics manufacturing company in Morden, are people surprised?
Yes, yeah. They're surprised because, like I said, it's unlikely. And an interesting fact to note is about 90% of makeup brands do not make their own products. They hire contract manufacturers to do so. So we are unique in the fact that we do produce our product from start to finish. I think we're pretty unique. I honestly don't even know of another brand that is doing what we're doing, where we're buying the ingredients right from the source and producing the products straight to finish. Like I said, a lot of others use contract manufacturers, which isn't a bad thing either. It's perfectly fine. But I like the fact that I have control over the ingredients I buy right at the start. So
you sell your cosmetics right across the country, including the US, and I got to ask because the times we're in. Tariffs, are you impacted at all?
You know what, most of our customer base and our retail partners are in Canada, so that's good. But we do have some retail partners in the States, and it does make me sad to think of how they'll feel about buying our product. Will they keep it in their stores? Will they want to find an American brand? So hopefully they like what we produce and want to keep buying from us. But there's been a shift right now of Canadians really wanting to support Canadian brands. So we've noticed an uptick in that way. And so for that, that's the silver lining in this whole thing. Yeah.
Well, thank you very much, Candice. So this is just a taste of just some of the really unique manufacturers, creative things going on in the Morden, Winkler area.
Still ahead, Riley is back with a last check on our forecast. You're watching CBC Winnipeg News. The Manitoba government has named today, March 20th, Day of the Francophonie. Heritage Minister Glenn Simard says French speakers have a right to access services in their language. The proclamation came with $80,000 in funding for the Association of Manitoba Bilingual Municipalities.
The funds will support enhanced translation, language training, policy development, normalization of the use of French, and the ability of municipalities to attract more bilingual residents and business.
French legal services are being enhanced with greater availability of bilingual judges, a new bilingual service hub in St. Boniface, and a new French language system for payment of certain fines.
All right, well, we're looking at keeping the sunshine for tomorrow, although a bit of a cloudier night ahead by the time we get a -7 out of there, but a windy one. North winds gusting up to 50 by the time we get to the afternoon. Certainly not the way some of us probably wanted to ring in spring. -3 for Saturday, periods of light snow through the afternoon, -1 on the way for Sunday. We are staying breezy through the weekend, so a bit of a windier one. We'll start to get a bit of clearing going once we get into Monday. That's going to signal a shift in our pattern, so you'll notice 4s and 5s as we get through Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday, and that sure looks a lot like spring to me. It's not always easy to break the ice. Sometimes you literally have to use a saw, Brittany.
But in Finland, things are getting elaborate, to say the least. We'll show you why in our Daily Lift. Okay, what you're looking at is careful and elaborate preparation to make an ice carousel on a lake in southwest Finland. This rotating disc is about 25 meters in diameter.
It's estimated to weigh around 150,000 kilos. It's only operational for a day. So all this work for a day, as overnight temperatures drop the overnight drop in temperatures will freeze it all over again. The Finnish inventor Johnny Kapelenko has created more than 80 such ice carousels over the years. Wow. That's cool.
It just looks so beautiful and picturesque. I don't know, maybe we could do something here. It's a little too late now.
You know what?
Maybe next
Cooler
year.
temperatures the next couple of years. But yes, do be careful because some of that ice has gotten really thin.
Exactly,
with those
be
warm
careful out there.
temperatures. So,
well,
next
have a
winter.
wonderful night. We'll see you back here tomorrow.
See ya.